Coming up next on Biotech Bites, a conversation with Tony Murabito, head of technology for Wave Life Sciences. We go through AI security, and the importance of staying in front of business, and how technology is not for technology's sake, it's for business. Hope you enjoy it. Welcome to Biotech Bites. I'm your host, Steve Swan, and Biotech Bites is a podcast where we speak with leaders in the biotech industry. And today we have the pleasure of being joined by Tony Murabito, who's the VP of IT and Chief Data Security Officer for Wave Life Sciences. Tony, thanks for joining us. Love your background. Glad you could be here.
Thank you, Steve, for having me. Yes, this is my office, home away from the office, but as you could see, a Philly sports fan to boot.
Love it. Great stuff. Great stuff. We could probably take a tour and take a week on all that stuff. So I won't torch you with any of that. So,
Thank you.
So, what I like to usually start with is just to give our listeners, a brief sort of summary on you. So what I like to ask folks is, give me a few minutes on you and how you got to where you are, where you started and how you got to, the position that you're in now, just to give a little background.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Good question. I've been in biotech pharma for north of 40 years. Came out of pharmacy school in Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, and at that point, didn't really want to be a pharmacist anymore. I had done an internship at SmithKline in drug information and had a world opened up to me that I didn't realize that was there, and started on my career at that stage. In a few years, was running drug information. I thought I was in a great position, and then I went to a sales meeting in Atlanta, and long story short, got booed off the stage. The reps were saying, by the time the doctor gets the letter, he forgets his question. Other reps say, he forgets the company. And that was my first lesson, and know who your customers are and make sure you listen to them. But was definitely an awakening for me, and started looking at the activities and knew we could do better. It was taking us 30 days to send out a letter, and these letters were usually 20 pages long, didn't say anything. And so there was this company up in Boston, as we were looking, called Wang Labs, and they had this integrated word processing system, and sounded good. We worked it out, implemented it, and ended up significantly improving output, decreased cycle time to 15 days the first year, under 10 the second year. Return on investment was quick and positive, and all of a sudden management says, hey, Tony knows IT, let's give him this. Or all of a sudden I'm doing a product safety system, and Tony didn't know anything about IT at that point. I was 286 or 386, and figured, let me go back to school at night and see if I could figure this out. And did that and continued to progress in the role. Was involved in the first Candas for SmithKline, and that was fun times as you're developing with your peers electronic template standards and approaches to get us where we're at today in terms of submissions. And then I had an opportunity to run global R&D information management for 7 years. So now here's a global position. Lived in the UK for several years. So it was a completely new perspective. Previous job, most of my customers were external healthcare professionals, regulatory, etc. Now they were all internal customers. And at this time, I had fell in love with IT and was clearly wanted to be a CIO at some point. Then at around 2000, there was a rumor of a merger with Glaxo, which we couldn't believe. They were our arch enemy, and lo and behold, there was. And there were these packages called voluntary reduction in force, which was 2-year severance, pension vesting. Those days you got a pension, and wasn't going to take advantage of it. And some of my older colleagues gave me some wisdom and said, this doesn't happen. And in 6 months will be the involuntary one. And that'll be a lot. So, raised my hand, took the package, took some time off.
Who were you with then? Who was
I
merging with
was
you?
with Smith Kline and French, and we were basically merging with Glaxo Wellcome.
Got it.
They turn into Glaxo Smith Kline. So raised my hand, took the package, took some time, and then started to interview for the biotech world. And for the next 20 years, I've been in various biotech positions up and down the East Coast. Spent some time at TKT, Transkaryotic Therapies. Spent 8 great years at Cubis, where we turned an injectable antibiotic into $1 billion product. An amazing commercial team there. Was the last CIO at Human Genome Sciences. Actually, GSK purchased us again, so I got to retire from GSK twice. And I've been up in New England for the last 6.5 years at Wave Life Sciences in an exciting environment. That pretty much takes us to the current day.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's funny that back in the day with the Wang Labs that you were dubbed the IT guy because you figured that whole thing out. It's similar to so the Swan Group's my mom's company. She started this a long time ago. And initially she did babysitters for me and my brothers. That's what got her into this business, but her second wave, if you will, before IT was executive assistants. And she could figure out the typewriters. She knew the difference between the different typewriters. That was the technology then, typewriters. And so she became the technology person because she could really nail down the differences between those typewriters and who was good at each different typewriter as executive assistants. It's kind of funny how you just kind of fall into that. And that's how we got into doing technology work and technology recruitment because of that, So, and then you had obviously your punch card, your data processing, and kept going from there, So speaking of which, so that's some of the real early technology. What year was that with Wang? Wang's, I mean, that was
1985,
yeah,
86.
yeah. Things move fast. Well, so from there, we're here now. So, what do you think in today's day and age? Because you've seen a bit, and this is going to be some wisdom from somebody who's seen a lot of different change, right? I mean, somebody who's younger right now, just maybe they know AI. I mean, word processors. Who not a lot of folks. I remember going to college in the '80s with the word processor. It was like, wow, that's a big thing, and it had a built-in printer and all that stuff. But today, right? Today's a completely different era. What do you think about the technology today? And what do you think is going to be, the differentiator? I mean, a lot of folks are talking about AI and some folks are talking about how we're out in front of our skis on that. Some folks are talking about how, data's not ready for it. We got, all sorts of different things. Just in general, I guess, where do you think we are from a technology perspective? And do you think we're about to make some big jumps with some of the new technology coming? And if so, which ones do you think will make the biggest difference?
Oh, excellent question. Yes, one of the benefits of being old is you have perspective. So there was one point in my career at Smith Kline where I was rolling out the internet to the company. This was early days of the internet, and we were playing with browsers, Veronica, Mosaic, and then there was something called Netscape. And even for me, I could say, okay, I get it. This is it. Yet, as we know, there was a period of, as Gartner puts it, disillusionment, where you could see the technology, you could see the benefit, but it wasn't taken off like everyone thought it was. And then, boom, kind of did. And we're here today where you can't imagine a world. I know my kids and grandkids can't imagine a world without the internet, but we did, and actually worked well and thrived in those pre-internet.
Yeah, my mom talks about when she used to send a resume to a hiring manager, right? She's mailing it, she's sending a piece of paper, or she's getting an interview based on a conversation. not even a resume. So anyway, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, not at all. And as we can see by some of the network latency, we're still working on getting that technology a bit better. But no, I think today, Steve, at least from my vantage point, I think AI is going to fundamentally change everything we do as individuals, as consumers, as productivity workers, etc. And at Wave, we're trying to focus on multiple areas to see where to best apply this technology. You said you have to have your data right. You have to have good data. But if you do, there are areas you can take advantage of it in terms of discovery, getting insights for your organization, trying to identify better tox profiles for certain compounds. We've been working with our data science team on that one, rolling out packages to the organization to use LLMs based on PubMed, US Patent Office. So again, taking those tools and then looking across the organization at productivity opportunities, the ability to be able to summarize emails, documents, etc. Seeing a lot of early benefits. We've been at it. Basically, we kicked off year two at our AI initiative at Wave yesterday. But again, the team reflecting, we've touched on about 5 or 6 areas, but we're all seeing big benefits and want to continue and expand our ways forward, be it in research, be it in development, medical, enterprise, etc.
So you've been letting folks, utilize AI. You're going into year 2 now, right? And a lot of companies, well, some companies were like, "Well, we don't know what to do. We don't know where we're going." We're in the Wild West, right? Like you said, the first days of the internet we're almost in, right? And folks don't know. Well, they don't know what they don't know. They are getting a lot of heat from some of the upper management saying, "Hey, a lot of people are making money on this. It's in the newspaper. We got to do this, right?" Um, so that's a lot of pressure coming from that end too. But as far as AI is concerned, and security and thinking about all that, I mean that's the first thing that I think bubbles into everybody's brain when they start thinking about AI. But I mean, it's it's something we gotta deal with because everybody's gonna be using AI anyway, whether you allow them to or not, I think, right? They're gonna have a machine on the side, or they're gonna be using it in their queries on their computer or whatever. So it's just a matter of really having the right security structure in place so that either your data can't move from where it is or what have you, right?
You're not able to search and get the payroll information for your organization.
Right,
So
exactly.
you only have access to the information you've been permitted to have access to.
Right, right, right. Yeah. And you gotta think about that all the time, I'm sure.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because in a lot of cases, your CEO is also trying the tool and also wanting to see certain results or, again,
Yeah.
benefits from take these 4 documents and give me a 3-page summary of them.
Right.
And boom, that's a way that, they can jumpstart their activities. They can get more informed,
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
better insights quickly.
Sure. Yeah, and help them if they're ever gotta give a speech
Yeah.
or a brief on something, right? It can help them do that as well.
But no, we wanted to be aggressive last year in terms of rollout. So we developed a policy that got everyone comfortable. We developed a training program that, folks would have to go through the policy, attestation, understand it, go through specific training program, take that before we gave them access to the tools. And then we limit where they could take those tools and what information they have access to. But tended to work well, got management comfortable. We had the necessary guardrails and we had enough oversight in place that we felt pretty comfortable. The other thing was, at least for Copilot across our Microsoft domain, we built that from the start. So a lot of us were there when Wave was just gearing up the first time. So we were comfortable that our security model was strong, and it was good that we proved it out over the last year. Yeah, it's pretty tight, and we didn't have any people accessing data they didn't have prior permissions for.
And that's you. You're the chief data security officer, so you're 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 the guy handling that, which is good, right? You're
Yeah,
calm.
at the end of the day, the buck stops here.
It does. I've had companies come to me and say, "Can you help me with AI security?" I'm like, "Well, what does that mean?" You know? And really, I think what it means, what it's got to mean, because it's not the technology, it's the data, right? We got to protect that data. So I really think it's around more data security than anything else. I think that's what they're saying most of the time, right? When they come to me with that, because that's really what you're trying to protect. It's nobody getting access to that. I had a podcast I did early in 24 where one gentleman said that he was playing around with ChatGPT one day. You're gonna love this one. Playing around with ChatGPT one day, and all of a sudden, up popped information from a competitor, and it was their drug. It was information, and they screenshot it and got it over to the CIO of the other company, and said, "Hey, you got a problem here." And so I guess they fixed whatever they had to fix, but still, that's the poster child. That's the nightmare that everybody has, right?
Oh, yeah, there's quite a few of those stories out there now over the last couple years. The other thing is make sure you have good commercial data protection agreements with your big information providers. Microsoft will work with you on those, Amazon, similar, but they're important from a legal aspect to have those in place. Your data, your audit trails, etcetera, aren't going out for products to learn from. So have it locked down completely, even from a contractual basis.
Now, is that on like you just said, is it on a contractual basis, or some people tell me that has to do with your settings, your internal settings, toggling off, the learning mode or whatever. Is that not true?
No, that is true.
Oh, it is.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You tend to, and you can control it.
Okay. Okay. Because someone told me once that, if data's out there, it's either A, somebody has that toggled in the wrong direction, meaning learn from me, or B, it could have just been a previous I'm sorry, leak, where a server was open and they didn't know it and it went out onto the internet or something. But you really do. I mean, again, given the fact that what we do and how important these formulas are and how important this data is, you got to have several layers. You can't just rely on a toggle and hope that everything else is right. That's not a thing. So
And the other thing is Microsoft today, these days, gives you excellent visibility into your overall security profile. They have what they call a secure score, where they rate you on different security parameters, and more importantly, give you the fixes to improve those parameters. And we now have cyber insurance companies asking for those. What's your Microsoft Secure Score? Data rating, application rating. Yes.
wow, that's it's like I don't know, a Moody's or an S&P credit rating on a bond, right? Like what's your security score? Microsoft. So does AWS do the same thing? Do they score as well, or just Microsoft?
Not to that extent. No, not to that visibility, nor you having the ability to modify that score. And again, things change every week. So what looks good today may be very different in a week or two. That's why you need to constantly stay on top of it. But it's nice that they provide that visibility and tools and insights.
I think that's great. And now I guess you would probably have to be an Azure customer to, at least in one way, shape, or form, to utilize Microsoft as a security score, because most people have AWS and Azure, right? But you'd have to have, I'm sure, and I'm sure that they're not doing that for free. They're going to charge you, so that's not just part of their thing. So
No, but they're also pushing you to use more of their products too to get further visibility. So if you turned on Defender, you would now have access to.
yeah,
So something Microsoft also does well.
yeah, because a lot of folks talk about that with me. Like I said, the security around it and trying to figure out how to lock it down or whatever. And I think that's great. When they look at this, they can think about Microsoft as somebody that can help them wrap their arms around at least where they're deficient, and figure it out, right? So that's cool. So now, as far as you know, where you think we're going with all this technology, right? I mean, it's going to change everything fundamentally, right? As you mentioned early on, and we've got it in the research side, we got it in the commercial side. This newer technology. Do you think that on either end of that, whether it's the research side or the commercial side, that one side's going to benefit from it more than the other? Have any thoughts on that? I've never really asked anybody that question, but it just kind of came to mind as we were talking about this. I mean, my thought goes to, on the research side, if we can cut certain amounts of time off, right, from the research with this new technology, the more time we cut off, the more we save. Because sometimes that that life cycle or that span can be several years. If we can cut off several months or half a year or whatever, that may be that's going to benefit the company, right? Saving some money. But I just thought I'd ask you if what your insights might be on something like that.
No, it's interesting because you have both of those domains kind of push each other. You tend to do most of your custom development in either the research space or the commercial space. And the middle space tends to be more COTS or, commercial off the shelf products that you configure and validate because of guidelines, etc. In both cases, the benefit's great. I don't know if one area is going to beat the other. I think both areas are where you're seeing the benefit. You have a lot of tools out there helping now on patient identification, patient selection, screening, where you're able to do, better enrollment because you're getting better data, the ability to identify those patient types, and discovery. More and more we're doing modeling across the organization. Now that's even extending into DMPK more and more, where we're doing more kinetic modeling, more pharmacology modeling. Likewise, in the tox group, doing more modeling for indications of certain tox profiles. See that continuing more and more. We're having to give those folks a lot of additional processing power to do what they need to do. It's good that we have it all centralized. Over the last couple of years, we moved them off their laptops and onto a more robust central environment, but becoming part of your discovery and development organization.
Right. And you can turn on or they can grab whatever compute power they need. If they need more, they grab it. If they don't, then they don't grab it, right? Being out on the cloud like that.
And that quickly acquiesces because they like to leave things on. So
Yeah.
with an activity, we turn the systems down because it
Right.
does get expensive quick.
It does. Yeah. Well, that's another, I guess, thing, that I hear a lot too, where folks are talking about going to the cloud. They, pretty much everybody's gone to the cloud, but they think they're going to save a ton of money. And that's not necessarily the case. Cause like you said, people leave things on, yada, 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 and so can you save money? Sure, you can. You got to be diligent though. Apparently that's what I'm hearing from folks. So
Yeah, have a good administration team. Make sure you're looking at all of your cost metrics monthly because storage all of a sudden can get out of hand and easily move it into a lower end storage. But so now we try to maintain visibility on it. My head of ops puts a lot of effort so we can see exact spends there. And again, that's something that went from several hundred thousands of dollars a year for Wave, where we're north of seven figures now, just in our AWS costs. And we're a small company, less than 300 employees.
right, but still, big number, but the ROI's got to be there, or else you wouldn't be doing it. So now let me ask you a question. This is uh you've been around a couple of years. Let's say I'm a young CIO coming into the industry right now. What would you say to me? Either something you didn't know when you came in that you wish you knew, or piece of advice you would give me. I'm a young guy. I've been in my job a couple of years, and I'm at a small company that's going to grow. What sort of, and I'm a new CIO. What sort of advice would you give to me and say, hey, do this, don't do that, whatever it is? I don't know. Anything that sticks out in your mind that you would say, I wish I had this, or this is something you should think about. We learned it along the way, or anything. And if not, then there's not, but
No, learn your business. Know your business partners. If you're new going into the job within the first 90 days, you should be meeting, engaging every business leader in the organization. Yeah, find out what they view as critical. What's the one thing IT has to get right this year for you? And you start developing that. But relationship management is critical these days. It's not in the old days where you had your team down in the basement, and if somebody wanted to get something done, they had to put in a ticket or a project request. You need to not just yourself, but your teams be out there engaging the business. More and more we try to put our BAs in the business. The more they understand the business, the more they're part of the solutions, the better off we're going to be in terms of an organization. But now engage the business, find out what they view as your value point,
that's
and
good,
then basically execute accordingly.
right? Yeah, because just strict, IT for IT's sake is not going to work. IT for business sake works. IT for IT's sake, it's not going to work.
Yeah, you have to do all of the blocking and tackling well. You have to do the security, you have to have the help desk coming. So when someone puts in a ticket, makes a call, they're getting the service that they need, etc., in order to be able to impact the business in other areas.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. That's good. I like that. Um, so what would you say? I like asking folks this too. Let's say I'm somebody that's interviewing with Tony or somebody in Tony's group. What makes Tony's group different? Why would I want to go to Wave and work with your team and with you, right? Because you're the head of your team, right? So what's different about being there than some of the other, because you've been at a few places, right? So how have you sculpted that to make it different, or how is it different then, or how do you do things different maybe than others do that you've seen?
Yeah, excellent questions. Talent management's a critical component of every leader in an organization. You better manage your talent well. You better grow them, motivate them, cajole them, understand them if you want to get the best out of them when things heat up, etc., which is important. Uh, I'll answer in the Wave context first. One of the reasons why I went to Wave and love being at Wave is we do everything. We have our own manufacturing plant in Lexington. We have a great process development capability. We have an unbelievable research capability. I spend a lot of time with the data science team. They're my best buddies, but again, we can impact the business greatly in those areas. Uh, all of those are important components of a learning organization, something we try to espouse. We kind of use our ops meetings to help each other in terms of organizational perspective. We bring in a voice of the customer again. At the end of the day, we're a service organization. If we're not delivering that service to all of the customers, we're not doing our base job, which is important. I've always believed, Steve, 30 years starting with myself, that development plans are critical. At Wave, every IT employee has a development plan. Even during lean times, we've given our team the time and resources to execute. This is your plan. We agreed to it, but it's up to you to execute. And most people love it because, it's music to their ears and they do it well. But we're able to keep growing and developing the team and bring in those new lessons back to the team. If you went to Bio IT World, where I have a couple of people at today. So what did you find out? What did you hear in terms of validated clinical data management components, which we're looking at? So, yeah, you have to create the right environment. You have to have the right leadership team. I'm blessed that I have a couple of solid senior leaders in my organization, and but we all try to create that environment. We got to love what we do. even though we get paid for it.
From a psychology perspective, autonomy, like you just said, is huge. Own it. It's yours, right? You know, and 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 even going back to Tony, even going back to, I don't know about you, but I coached a lot of kids teams back in the day. And if you think about, you know, when you went from the softball or baseball draft in 24 to 25, which of the kids that are going to want to be on your team when you draft them? The kids that were learning and the kids that were having fun. That hasn't changed much. I mean, we can frame it a couple different ways, but if you boil it all the way down, that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah, so that's one of the questions I asked at every interview. How do you learn? What's your approach to aptitude? I mean, how do you grow a new capability? What's your process? Do you network? Do you research? You Google it?
Right?
Tell me about it. And it's interesting to hear all the different approaches that folks have.
I bet the younger they are, it's more, the younger ones are more, I Google it, I YouTube it, then it gets more, this is just me based on everybody that I talk to. And then the older they get, or a little bit older, they might figure out about networking, right? And that kind of thing, so it could be, generational kind of, answers to that. That's an interesting question. That's great. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
And, but again, it surprised me. And every now and then you get an answer from some of these young ones. Just, my God, they have the wisdom of a 60-year-old. I mean, so
That's
some of
great.
them just, yeah. And I'm amazed at some of the co-ops we get in,
Oh, I
again,
bet.
their skill set, viewpoints, enthusiasm,
Yeah.
and they always leave something good behind at Wave. We always try to have them create a project, create a program, a process, something that we can use and you can leave behind.
Well, something that you can use, but again, going back to the ownership, the accountability kind of thing, something they can own too. It makes people feel good. If this is my real estate. This is mine. I own this. And that's a good thing. But the downside of that is you own it. You better make it as good as you can make it because that's your product and that represents you. So, but that's great for them and for you, I think.
So a lot of times, Steve, they say, if you did it this way, you would get even additional insight. So after a while, they're starting to understand your processes, what you're trying to do, and they help you take it the next step.
Right. And they help me unravel it and reverse engineer it and look at it. Yeah, exactly. That's great stuff. I like that. Huh. Cool. Anything else that you want to run through? Because we're getting towards the end. I do have one final question I ask of everybody. So I'll get to that. But before I get to that, I want to see if there's anything additional that you want to add or you want to talk about before I get to that final sort of fun question.
No, I would, one of the reasons why I'm still working, still love working, love being in our industry is the learning opportunities that each of us find every day. Working in biotech in Boston, you almost couldn't pick a better hotspot to work in, pick a better spot to network in. So ensure you're looking at your portfolio every year. What can I do to enhance my capabilities? What can I do from a technology standpoint, from a soft skill standpoint, from an expertise standpoint over the next year to improve myself, make myself more marketable, more impactful to the business? I think all of us have to take that and own that these days. Companies less and less take ownership of that like they did in the past. So make sure we do, because again, we're moving so fast. The skills rapidly become obsolete in terms of timing. So you need to stay on top of it. And that's my challenge to my team.
And well, to all of us, right? We all got to do it. Yeah, but yeah, I think that's great. Cool.
Yep.
Good. Well, thank
And
you.
it keeps me out of trouble, Steve.
That's good. That's
Yeah,
good. Well, so do all the sports
absolutely.
you're following around by the looks of everything behind you.
Yeah, well, most satisfying, Super Bowl this year with the Eagles, after all the years of pain and misery,
Yeah.
it was almost too good, but no, I don't really mean that.
Fingers crossed. Let's see what happens, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, but it's
So
good.
so final question. I always like asking folks. So you're a sports guy. I like seeing live music. I like going to concerts. I like seeing music. So, and I don't know if you go to concerts or you like music, and I don't know if any of my guests do, but I always ask the same question anyway, because so as far as concerts or live music's concerned, you know, are there any? If you've been to any or you like any, have there been any at any point in your life that you would say, well, this one concert stands out, or this one show stands out as the best one I've ever seen? You know, if you're around and you're ever talking to people at a party or whatever, and they're talking about their best concert, you could be like, well, yeah, I saw, I don't know, whatever, XYZ in 78, or I saw this one in 97 or whatever, that was your best concert. Anything that comes to mind or sticks out?
Absolutely. 1978, Glassboro State University, now Glassboro State College, now Rowan University, Little Feat and Tower of Power. And literally, it was Little Feat, all the original members. It
Lowell
was an
George.
unbelievable Lowell George, Bill Payne,
Yeah.
and it was the Waiting for Columbus tour, if you've
What a
ever
great
heard that
album.
live album, and I'm getting goosebumps now
So am
thinking
I.
about it. I love music, been to concerts, when Genesis was going through their final tours, I was making sure my schedule, I could get them in at least 3 towns. Obviously, they ended in Boston, but
Yeah.
no, definitely Little Feat, the Glassboro State College.
Little Feat was, I remember when they came back in the late 80s, and I saw them up in Boston. They played in a little place in like Roxbury or something, and Lowell George was long gone, right? And then I saw them open up for the Grateful Dead up in Maine in 1988, and stuff like that. They were good. I think they're trying to do their thing again now, but yeah, Little Feat. That Waiting for Columbus album is probably one of my favorites. It's a great
Yep,
album.
absolutely.
Lowell George was awesome, but, God rest his soul, right? So,
Yeah, Fat Man's Boogie.
fat man in the bathtub.
Yes, sir.
Well, good. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Sure thing. Yeah, no, and to our listeners, if you liked what you heard or saw, feel free to go out and connect with us, comment, rate us on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. All right? That'd be great. Thank you.